Trump and Harris hold their first debate. Key statements: Russia and China develop military technical cooperation, and autumn at front. How Russians stuck in Pokrovsk. The latest news analysis next. The first presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump took place in the U.S. The former president and current U.S. vice president discussed a wide range of domestic issues, but foreign policy, including Ukraine, was also on the agenda. Here are the key statements from the U.S. presidential candidates during the debate. The debate, which was scheduled to last 90 minutes, ran slightly over time, partly due to Trump's lengthy responses. According to CNN's calculations, the former president spoke for a total of 43 minutes, while his opponent spoke for 37.5 minutes. Domestic issues such as the economy, immigration, abortion bans, the protection of democracy, the peaceful transfer of power, and health care received significantly more attention during the debate than foreign policy topics. However, the war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the conflict between Israel and Hamas, were also addressed. About Russia-Ukraine war. Although the issue of Russian aggression against Ukraine came up only after an hour into the debate, the discussion was highly emotional. Trump reiterated his claim that Russia would not have attacked Ukraine if he were president, but dodged the moderator's question about whether he wanted Kyiv to win the war. The former U.S. president said, "I want the war to stop. I want to save lives. People are being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you are getting, which are fake numbers." When asked by the moderator to reveal his peace plan, Trump did not provide details, saying only that he would call the leaders of Ukraine and Russia, and according to him, the war would end shortly after. In response, Harris accused Trump of cozying up to dictators, adding that he would surrender in 24 hours, allowing Putin to sit in Kyiv and then look toward the rest of Europe. Quote, "And what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator? Who would eat you for lunch?" the vice president remarked. About Israel-Hamas conflict. When discussing the conflict that erupted last October between Israel and Hamas militants in Gaza, Trump repeated his usual claim that the war would not have started if he had been president. He added that Israel should finish what it started and end it quickly, and that the U.S. should let Israel finish the job. Harris, on the other hand, reiterated the Biden administration's stance of ironclad support and unwavering commitment to Israel, emphasizing the country's right to defend itself. However, she also stressed the importance of how that defense is conducted, referencing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the civilian casualties from the fighting. Quote, "What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out, and so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution," she said, adding that she supports resolving the conflict based on the two-state solution principle. About Trump and Orban. During the debate, Harris criticized Trump, claiming that many world leaders laugh at him and that some military officials referred to the former president as a disgrace. In response, Trump recalled how Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, whom current President Joe Biden has called a dictator, praised him. Trump claimed that Orban said Russia and China would fear him if he won the election. Trump added, quote, "Let me just say about world leaders, Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men," he said, "because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him." About 2022 elections and the peaceful transfer of power. Trump continues to refuse to acknowledge his defeat in the 2020 presidential election, which was won by Joe Biden, and has rejected all previous statements that might suggest otherwise. Quote, "No, I don't acknowledge that at all. I said that sarcastically. You know that," he explained, adding that there is so much evidence that he won, not Biden. Additionally, Trump has denied any responsibility for the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol, which occurred following his claims of a stolen election, and he is called to march on Congress. Trump stated that security should have been the responsibility of then Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. In response to these past events, Harris called for turning the page and not going back. She emphasized, quote, "Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backward to the past." About migration issue. Regarding immigration, Trump criticized the Biden-Harris administration, alleging that tens of millions of migrants have entered the U.S. during their tenure. He also referenced a fabricated social media claim that migrants from Haiti in Springfield are kidnapping pets to eat them. Overall, Trump's discussion on immigration was marked by falsehoods and manipulations. Harris reminded him of the congressional efforts when Democrats and Republicans worked on a compromise bill to strengthen control at the U.S.-Mexico border, which was ultimately forwarded by a group of Trumpists. The debate over immigration and border issues has also delayed congressional approval for continued military aid to Ukraine. For 6 months, American lawmakers were stuck until they managed to separate the border issue from aid to Ukraine and Israel. Russia and the People's Republic of China continue to develop military technical cooperation in various areas, reported by Institute for the Study of War. About details, on the 10th of September, U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell revealed in an interview with Politico that China is offering substantial support to the Russian defense sector in exchange for access to classified Russian military technologies. Campbell highlighted that China's support goes beyond the mere provision of dual-use items to Russia. It represents a substantial effort to help sustain, build, and diversify elements of the Russian war machine. He warned that in return, Russia is supplying submarines, aircraft, and missile technology to China, technologies that Moscow has been previously reluctant to share and that are considered highly protected. Chinese officials continue to deny any involvement in supporting Russia's military operations and maintain that China remains neutral in relation to Russia's war in Ukraine, despite repeated Western claims of Chinese material support for Russia's defense industry and its geospatial intelligence capabilities. Reports of more direct Chinese assistance to Russia come against the backdrop of the Russian-led international naval exercise Ocean 2024, currently taking place in the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, as well as in the Mediterranean, Caspian, and Baltic Seas. On the 10th of September, Russian President terrorist Vladimir Putin announced the launch of Ocean 2024, accusing the United States of exerting pressure on both Russia and China, which they argued made joint naval exercise necessary. Russia continues to launch heavy attacks towards Pokrovsk, attempting to advance. However, both in this direction and in the Eastern Front, overall, the enemy's ability to conduct significant offensive operations may be exhausted by the end of the month. Additionally, the weather is likely to reduce the intensity of active combat. More on what to expect on the front lines in the RBC Ukraine article below. Main direction Pokrovsk. Russian actions in the most active section of the Eastern Front remains Pokrovsk. However, according to Commander Alexander Syrsky, the Ukrainian armed forces have managed to halt the advance of Russian troops. Quote, "The enemy continues to press forward in Pokrovsk. We are seeing these massive attacks continue, but we have engaged reserves, and in doing so, we've at least slowed the enemy down. I think we will stop them," said military expert, retired UAF Major Alexei Hetman in a comment to RBC Ukraine. He explained that previously it made no sense to involve reserves. They are not deployed at the start of an enemy operation or in the middle, but rather when it approaches its final phase, Hetman said. So when it reached a certain point and the enemy was confident that everything was going as planned, we engaged reserves. We've seen this in places like the town of New York. He added that the occupiers are currently searching for weak spots in Ukrainian defenses, particularly in the Vuhledar direction, but across the entire front line as well. Even on the Kupiansk-Liman front, there are signs of escalation. However, Hetman doubts that the Russians will be able to make any significant advances. The expert said, "Much depends on how quickly we can maneuver our reserves to counter the enemy, as they are starting to change tactics. In simpler terms, they have hit a wall in Pokrovsk. Realizing that they won't succeed there, they are looking for other entry points. I think they will keep searching but will eventually stop. How much longer Russian forces can advance? According to Hetman, both Ukrainian and international analyses suggest that Russia's capacity to conduct large-scale offensive actions may run out by the end of this month, as in the spring-summer campaign. In other words, this Russian offensive may be exhausted in 2 to 3 weeks. Hetman said, "No army in the world can sustain continuous offensive operations for extended periods, a year, 2 or 3, that's not possible. Offensive actions require meticulous preparation, and once what they've planned and prepared runs out, so does the offensive." He speculated that there would likely be a period of positional warfare, or the occupiers may have to switch to defense. Hetman explained, "They understand this perfectly, which is why they are building fortifications behind their offensive lines, knowing that a counterattack is coming." How autumn will impact frontline situation? The expert also said that autumn weather will influence the situation on the Ukrainian front, while rain and mud won't completely halt their fighting. They are likely to stop any significant ground maneuvers. Quote, "We are dealing with two interconnected factors here. First, the exhaustion of the aggressor's capabilities, as no army can attack indefinitely. Second, the impact of the weather. Rain and mud will make movement much more difficult in the field." Hetman said, "Try to drive anything or even walk across dug-up terrain. You will quickly realize that the enemy won't be able to conduct active operations. After the rains, even tracked vehicles won't be able to pass, let alone wheeled ones." According to a recent interview with the head of Ukraine's military intelligence, Kirill Budanov, the Russian army has nearly halted active offensives on most parts of the front as of early September, except in the main direction of attack. He mentioned that the Russians are now desperate to achieve their objectives and are throwing everything they have into it. Budanov also highlighted that historically, Russian forces don't perform well in winter, adding that the typical challenges of war are compounded by the difficulties of dealing with nature. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe.